Hello! Welcome to the Dad Report, a podcast for dads, by dads, about dad stuff.
Join us as we sit down and have meaningful conversations with friends, family, and coworkers.
We will talk about life, family, and so much more while working towards a goal of creating a healthy idea of what it means to be a dad. Welcome to episode 21 of the Dad Report.
Hello, Justin. How are you?
Tired. Chad, how are you?
I bet you're tired. That's kind of your normal for right now, isn't it? I'm good, man.
My new normal.
I'm feeling good
Yes.
tonight.
You're feeling good? Is it the tea? And every now and then you come on here drinking
No,
tea.
I just have water. I have water
As God
tonight,
intended it.
so yeah, I probably haven't had enough today, so I went that route. So Justin, as we've been talking a little bit, we have noticed in some of the analytics for the show that we have some international listeners popping up. I've counted that the Dad Report is on 4 continents now. So we are in North America,
Yes.
we are in Africa, Europe, and Asia.
That is, you are correct. We are on
Yes.
4 continents. The day we get Antarctica, I will be proud.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's got to be
I
some
don't know if that's gonna
scientists down there who, boost their Wi-Fi signal being so close to satellites at the poles. I mean, come on.
Are there a lot
Um,
of dads in Antarctica?
I mean, it's scientist dads, penguin dads. Penguins
Penguin
can't listen to
dads.
this. Okay.
Don't know. Yeah. Don't
Well,
know if that would
let's shout
apply.
them out real quick and give
Okay.
them their credit. Maybe they'll share with their friends that they had their country, their nation shouted out. So first we have, of course, the United States of America, where we are hosting and producing from. Then we have the great land up north, Canada. We have the United Kingdom. We have Singapore, Puerto Rico. Wait, is Puerto Rico a country or is it a territory?
It is a territory.
Ah, okay. We have the Philippines. That's pretty cool. India, South Africa, Germany, and New Zealand.
Yes, sir. We're
That's a
getting
whole-
out there.
That's a whole bunch of countries right there.
That's a whole bunch of countries.
Whole bunch of countries. Well,
Absolutely.
Chad, I'm going to give you the honor. We actually have our first international guest on the show tonight. Please introduce him for us.
Yes. So tonight, we have a new friend of mine that I met through Facebook, actually, through a master class that we were
Not
both
creepy at
in
all.
and-
Oh, okay.
and connected, and not creepy at all. And we connected and just got to talking and felt like he would be a really good fit to have on as a guest. So I'd like to welcome Jason Alcott to the show. Hey, Jason.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's an honor to be here. I am from another country, so hopefully my the language difference isn't too bad that you can't understand, right? So
Sounds okay so far.
sounds okay so far.
good.
The Google Translator is working out really good.
Yeah. It's running live the whole time.
Oh,
So Jason,
perfect.
where do you hail from?
I hail from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm actually really close to the United States border. I can almost wave at my friends in the United States from where I live. So yeah, so grew up in this area, so really close to the border. Lots of time down at Seattle. Love being down. in the
That's super
States, so.
cool. So
yeah.
for those who are, and I'm thinking of like some of the younger people who are listening to this, when they hear Vancouver, British Columbia, they actually have no idea what country that's in, or that even is in a country. So I'm assuming you're proud of your nation. Would you like to share your nation with us?
Absolutely. I'm Canadian. Absolutely. 100%
Yes.
true. The nation of Canada here on the West Coast. So home of the 2010 Olympics. That's the big thing for us here in
That's right.
Vancouver. It really put Vancouver on the map in a big way. So
Was that
Yeah.
Winter Olympics in 2010?
it was the winters. Yeah. And we had very, very little snow, which was rare for us.
Was that when Shaun
Yeah.
White tore it up on the half pipe and introduced the triple blizzard flurry twist or something like that?
I would have to look back. I know I was just watching the winters this last year and watching Shaun White do his last run down the pipe.
I
That was
missed
pretty
it.
fun.
I missed
Oh,
that
it was
one.
pretty good. Yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like every Winter Olympics.
Yeah, just-
Shaun
yeah.
White tearing
But
it
he
Shaun
was
up.
White
done.
tearing
He
it
was
up.
retiring this time. This was his last time through. So it was a big
Didn't
deal.
Michael
right.
Phelps quote unquote retire and then
Yeah,
like
exactly. I'm like, until he
return.
comes
Yeah.
back next
Sean
time. We'll
will
see
get
what
bored.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What's he
even
gonna do now?
right. I mean, Tony Hawk did the same thing where he's like, "Yo, I'm 50. I'm gonna quit skating." Then he
Yeah.
posts on Instagram. He's like, "Yo, I like broke a tooth doing something on a bowl." He's like, "Dude, okay, done skating." Those guys can't give that stuff up. There's
No,
no.
So
definitely not.
so Jason, tell us about yourself. We'll give you a few minutes to kind of just give us a little bit about, yourself, your family, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. So I am a husband to my beautiful wife. We've been married for about 6 years, and we have 3 little girls. So I am definitely listening to what you guys are talking about on the dad report, loving it. I got a 4-year-old who's about to be 5, and I got a
Oh, wow.
3-year-old, and I have a 8-week-old baby girl at home.
Oh my
So
goodness!
Wow.
Congratulations.
thank you so much. Yeah,
We
we should
better not hold
congratulate
you
my
up
wife.
here.
So.
Your wife is going to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, I talked to her before this. I'm like, honey, if they said an hour, it could be 2. I don't know. It could be a while. I don't know when I'll be home, honey. I
He's
just
gonna
don't
milk
know.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's like, I need
They
the
said-
break.
Yeah, they said we might need to re-record. I may need to come back later. I don't even know. It could be days, honey. It could be days. Yeah, with kids, right? So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I work with a great company up here that actually puts gutters on houses and new construction projects up here. So serve a team up here, about 30-ish people around the Lower Mainland, and a really, really great team of people. So that's my day-to-day job, working in construction.
Okay.
And yeah, and that's kind of, it's fun. It's a good group of people, keeps me going. And then a couple of years ago, I had always wanted to write a book. But I decided that, the book wasn't going to write itself, and sat down and started getting up even earlier in the morning than I was
Ooh.
before. And that was the only time that was available. Right. So,
Right.
being a dad, right, you've got to, we talk about that more, but do what you need to do. And so carved out little bits of time in the morning to write a book, and release that book last year in November of 2021. And it's just been kind of a passion project and fun of getting that out there and encouraging people through it, and the feedback's been amazing, and yeah, it's been really good. So that brings us mostly up to today, I guess.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, it's
So
good.
with your job, are you like physically installing the gutters, or are you like helping manage and delegating the teams that go out and do construction projects?
Yeah, I support the teams. Yeah, they don't let me hold a
Okay.
hammer or go up the ladder. I'm that guy.
You're that
But
guy.
that's that. But yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah, and that's, what, I had to own that a while ago, right? So no, I support a group of teams here that go out every day. So
That's
yeah.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Talk us about your
Justin, you have 2 of those guys here now. So I know you are the facilities guy. That
I
is
like
not who you're
I
talking
like
to.
the power
Yeah.
tools.
Yeah,
I did
not
not
so much.
I did not initially, and then I gave it up for a while and was like, oh, you know what? I actually really miss working with my hands. So now I'm back in it.
That's awesome.
Jason, you mentioned, and I want to, this is not in the stuff we prepared for you, but you mentioned like getting up earlier, carving out that little bit of time, because like you said, as fathers, like our schedules are pretty much slammed from the jump, whether it's the 9 to 5 we work, and then coming home and the wife needs something, kids need something. That, and we obviously want to spend time with them too. We're not,
Sure.
I don't want this to be like, oh man, there's just, pain in my neck. So talk to us about your morning routine. Like, what does that look like for you? How early are we talking that you're getting up?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, so I get up at 5.
Okay.
I still do about between 5 and 5:30 now that I'm not writing as much in the morning, but at 5. But that really stems out of, like, I learned a number of years ago when I was going to university, sort of when I was at my best in the day, as far as being able to be creative and think things through. And for me, and that's not the same for everybody, right? But for me, it is the morning. So if I look at my days and I'm kind of map things out, like I know if I need to carve out time, I've got either time before my family gets up, right? Or I've got time when the kids go to bed. And personally, and before I go to bed. So whatever those, if there's an hour and a half in there, personally, I've found that by the time I get to that time, so whatever that is, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, before I try to climb in bed by 10:30, whatever that is, I know when I get to that time of day, I don't have a whole lot left.
Your brain is depleted.
My brain is fairly depleted.
Yeah.
And other people that I know, my wife included, like she gets like way smarter as the day goes on. And I just, my intelligence just falls off as the day goes on.
Yeah, unless you're pumping me full of caffeine and sugar, but even then, not a pretty sight.
Not great, right? So I remember going to university and be like, I'd have to study for an exam, and I would literally like go to bed and get up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to study before the exam, because I knew if I studied late at night, I wasn't gonna take anything in, right?
Right.
So figure that
Yeah,
out. So
same
I would
here.
get up when I was writing. I would get up at 5, and I typically do some devotions in the morning, and still do every day. Kind of do some devotions in the morning. It's kind of the only time it's really nice and quiet, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
trying to be very consistent and sort of habit stacking. I don't know if you guys heard that term, but you try and so I eat breakfast, and that's when I'm in the word. That's just a
Okay.
habit that I've created, right? So those two things kind of go together for me. So it's funny, like if I wake up late and I skip breakfast, I'm like, shoot, I actually didn't do my devotion today either, because I just skipped that whole step of my morning.
And that's all part of your habit. They're intertwined together.
They're very much intertwined together.
Okay.
And so, kind of keep that consistent and flow, and try and do that. And when try and be as creative, if I'm writing or working on, like I'm posting a weekly YouTube video,
Mhm.
try and work on that a little bit in the morning, if I can, if I carve out the time. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's been good,
Yeah, that's great.
but it's not for everybody, right?
No.
Not
Yeah, I'm-
everybody's going to get up earlier. So
I'm the same way. So, Justin, I kind of peg you as the night owl guy, but I'm
Just because I whipped up a video
Uh,
in 2 hours last night does not mean I'm a night owl person. I just really enjoy that when I get into a creative flow, regardless of time, I'm in it. And then if
That's
I'm
cool.
Yeah.
not able to click into it, count me out. Like I'm thinking I will literally just start jumbling words together, and it's just word vomit. And so yeah, last
Yeah.
night was one of those things where actually I was really exhausted, and you challenged me. Well, you didn't directly challenge me, but I felt the challenge to create a YouTube channel for this show and create that video, and I got on it.
That's cool. That's exciting.
So
I've been kind of experimenting with like, how can you create, I love that you said flow, like how can you create flow in
Mhm.
times when maybe it isn't your optimal time of flow? And so for me, I don't know what you've experienced, but like if I can just throw on a pair of headphones and put on some background music or some Christian music in the background, I
Yes.
find that can be a massive change for me. If I need to, because if I need to be creative, if I run out of time or run out of window and I know I need to like record the next day, or I got to present or something like that, if I can just throw on some music, that's a massive change, or get a quick walk around the block. Those things can like really just shift me from being that sort of exhausted dad at the end of the day to like, okay, I can still put in another couple hours of being creative.
yeah.
Yeah, same here. And I've working from home these days, I have found my headphones to be invaluable because,
Sure.
my kids are homeschooled, and, we have however many things going on during the day. And if I'm not on the phone and, there's shenanigans of some sort happening,
There's always something
I'll
going on,
just
right?
throw those on, put on a podcast or put on, Spotify or whatever, and
Yep.
just be able to dial in. And so yeah, that saves me. That's a crutch for me on some days, I feel like, but it works. It works for sure.
Absolutely.
So Jason, so when we were talking the last time, just kind of getting to know each other, we were talking about kind of the difference of our COVID lockdowns, right? So we're in Florida. So after some of the initial lockdowns here, things really opened up fairly quickly, I think, relative to the rest of the country, and even other countries, right? Like where you are. And you were sharing with me just some of the challenges of parenting during lockdown. So I was wondering if you could maybe, because a lot of our listeners are here in Florida, and as you were sharing, it really highlighted to me, oh yeah, not everybody has the same reality that we have here. And so you were just talking about some of the parenting challenges that you were having, just kind of amidst some of the challenges and restrictions that we have. So I was wondering, kind of however much you're comfortable just sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been interesting. I think we've definitely been a little bit more restricted, it sounds like, up here in Canada and the Vancouver area than you guys experienced in Florida. I think it was definitely the hardest on my wife.
Mm.
But when we went into COVID, so my middle daughter, so 2 years ago, so she's one and a bit, right? And then my oldest one is 3 or whatever, I guess, or no, sorry, yeah, around 3. And so she was kind of a little bit more socialized, but my middle child, my daughter Everly, we kind of walked in, and all of a sudden we were going to church, and she was kind of going to Sunday school, but then all of a sudden
Mhm.
we weren't going to church, and like we didn't go to church like for a year and a half.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden we went I think where we really noticed it, at least where I really noticed it, is we went to enroll my daughter in preschool. and had her start last September, and like that it wasn't happening. like
Wow.
like all of a sudden you're kind of, oh well, yeah, she's at this age, we should go to preschool. And you're like, well, wait, we actually just spent the last year and a half not even taking her, like we take them out of the house, we go to the park, we, see family and things like that, but like
Right.
that was it, right?
Wow.
Like, and then my wife being pregnant with our third daughter, we were obviously we were very careful in trying to make decisions about what was, best for our family. And so we were even sort of more restricted in just what we could do. Community centers were closed to us. There wasn't really we would take the kids to these community things and have them lots of stay and play ideas, but all of that stuff sort of just disappeared. It's slowly starting to come back, but like we just removed our mask mandate like a week ago up
Oh,
here,
wow.
or 2 weeks ago, like something
Oh,
ridiculous
okay.
like that.
Yeah.
We haven't removed like vaccine mandates up here yet. That supposed to happen next week. And so, which I mean is a whole nother discussion that I don't really think we should dive into, but so for my wife specifically, she's at home, she's got very young children, and all of a sudden these opportunities that we were taking to get out of the house, to tie into community, to connect with other families and parents and kids, they just disappeared. So I mean, it was
Oh,
one thing
yeah.
for me because I was able to go to work every day, or continue to work every day, or we were in construction, so we we're working outside, so I had to be able to get my teams out, right? But my wife was home raising the kids, and yeah, we connected with family, but it's not the same, right, when you're not connecting with those same community of people. So it's definitely been challenging, more for her than for me, but definitely been challenging in trying to, how do you parent through that? How do you equip your kids so that they can be in social situations and not be afraid or nervous or uncomfortable? And yeah, so it's been interesting, and we're not through it. We're still very much walking through that and learning through it as we go.
Wow. So, I feel like another thing we had talked about a little bit of just, and you touched on it a little bit. I'm curious if you have anything else to say about just what it looks like to, to find community amidst that. And you talked about that, your mask mandate has come down and that sort of thing. But what does it look like to find community amidst that? Because you talked about, with work and whatnot, you're able to go out, but what are some of the things you're able to do, to help your wife and your family, um, just being able to have some sort of community?
Yeah, I think and you look back and you go, well, we could have done that better, right? But being really
For sure.
intentional. My wife comes from a family of 4 girls, so she's got her sister she's very close with, and finding ways to be intentional to connect with family when we were allowed to, and get and even just what could we, it was more looking at the opportunities, well, what can we do, instead of getting focused on what we can't do. So who can we connect with, or who can we get together with, or how can we get together with friends and family, and if it needed to be Zoom and whatever like that, we did that, right?
Right.
um, but we did try to keep an open mind, and there's varying points where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, now we can't take the kids here, now we can't go do X. But we did try to be very focused on what can we do, what are we allowed to get out to do, and be able to socialize in that, and get into community. um, and yeah, so that would probably be the best way I could sum that up, is trying to stay as focused on the positive as possible, because it's just a mindset that flows through the family, right?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So one thing that's kind of related to that, and you touched on this a little bit as well, the concept of doing what is right for your family. And I know I've seen some of your YouTube videos, and a lot of it is focused on, the term I would use is like really self-leadership, right? Um, Whether you're in a stressful situation or whatnot. But you seem very intentional in the way that, you even talked about getting up early in the morning when you're writing or doing your devotion at a time when it's quiet, when you can have your time, and it's not time you're taking away from your family. So what I'm one thing that I think our listeners would really dig into a little bit is just understanding what it looks like, to make decisions that are the best for your family. Whether it's about COVID lockdowns or just the way you schedule your day, or however. I'm curious kind of what you go through to make some of those decisions, whether it's you or the way, you and your wife dialoguing about how you best do this for your family.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what the book's about too. It's really, I really wrote the book to be like, take a look at what you have inside of your control. Like, what are the gifts, talents, skills? Look at your time, all the things that God's given us. The book's called The Sowing Principle. And the concept is like, how do you sow what God's given you? Right. And that starting with as simple as the time that you have, the words that you have, thoughts that you have, and then obviously talking about your gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. So what can you take responsibility for? I think sometimes when there's mass confusion or things are changing really quickly, like when we walk through the pandemic, we abdicate responsibility really quickly because there's so many things going on that are outside of our control. But then, so all of a sudden we're like, well, it's outside of my control. So I'm just kind of going to sit back and wait for this sort of wave to pass. But that doesn't really help anything, especially as the dad, as the father, as the husband, as hopefully, the spiritual leader in our home. We need to be able to step up and to take responsibility in so many areas where we can, just recognizing where we can, like we can make choices that are the best for our family. So a big exercise that my wife had done over a couple of years, and it took us a while to get this figured out, but we really honed in on, what are our values? What are our values as a family? What are my values as myself, Jason? What are my wife's values as Larissa? And then, so we kind of did that for a little while, like a year, we were kind of talking about that. And then we spent some time, we're like, okay, so now let's look at what are our values as a family? And then we kind of have our 5 core values as a family, and we print those out and we've put them up in the house, and we try and use that as like a decision-making filter, so that when you talk about like making decisions that are best for your family, it's like, okay, it's not just that we want to make this decision because we feel this need in the moment. Well, how does that align with who we'd like to be as a family in the future? Does it align with what our values are? I don't know if that makes sense. That takes some work. That takes some deep work. It's not an overnight thing. But I've noticed that when my wife and I are on the same page about what we value, then all of a sudden, when we're trying to make decisions as a family about how we're going to move forward, whether it be in raising our kids or in our finances or next projects, even projects like this, right? Like getting on podcasts, it's going to take time right out of our family life. It's going to making those YouTube videos takes time out of our family life. Okay, so how does that fit into our values and what we want to be able to move forward like as a family? That's been really helpful to help us have a sort of a filter for decision making.
That's super cool. The idea, I feel like that helps clear up like marital communication, because then it's not, well, I, Jason, or me, Justin, I say we do this, and then not have a background for it. And like, so if I just tell my wife Megan, I feel we should, I don't know, put Amelia in pre-K right now, or not, she can't go to pre-K, but daycare,
Sure.
right? Without, and then she doesn't agree with it, and then she doesn't understand like my context behind it. It helps clarify that communication point when we can both come together and say, I agree on the value of honor, dignity, whatever, which also lends me to I wanted to ask, how broad or narrow, you said you had 5, is it 5 values you said, or roughly?
Yeah, 5 values. Yeah.
And they're printed and they're around your home, which first of all, I love that means it's being constantly, like, that means you're waking up and seeing it with morning coffee and Devo.
Very intentional.
That means your kids are seeing it. Your wife is seeing it. Like, that keeps it not just, oh yeah, we have family values in a notebook that might be collecting dust, but I'm seeing it every day, always around me. So even when I make the simple decision of putting the silverware away, like, I'm thinking through that filter, right? But I wanted to ask, how broad or narrow are those? Like, is it something where you took like a broad value of, like, let's say honor, and then scoped it down to respecting others, or like respecting mom? Or is it something where you just kind of keep it as like, let's just keep it as honor others, and just kind of leave that broad for broad's reason? Does that make sense?
Yep. No, for sure. Yeah, I would say they're fairly broad. And then what we've done is we've kind of taken them and say, what does that word mean to us?
Okay.
Right. And we actually allow that to be, I mean, even the values, like, I mean, I'm a big fan of, like, there's certain things in your life that you need to write down in Sharpie. Like, you need to write these down permanent, like God's purpose in your life, you write that down in Sharpie, but then the steps you write down in pencil because
I
we don't
love
get to,
that.
I just heard that. Yeah. Somewhere. I can't remember. I should give credit where credit's due.
It's original to you now. So.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, what do you write? And my pastor, he talks about this all the time, but it's like, especially when the world's so divided, right? So politically divided and all those things, but it's like, what are you holding on to? Where, like, you need to write this down. This is a core value. This is part of who you are. You write this down in Sharpie. And what do you need to, like, let loose and not stand in the gap between you having a relationship with somebody? Right. I see that a lot up here. I'm sure you guys do too, but but yeah, so with that, so like our values are fairly broad. Like our core values are like faith and family and health, being authentic and being and freedom, which and but we kind of divide that down a little bit so that we talk about things like building relationship over task in our family. That's what family means, like we're connecting, and so we kind of narrow it down and we allow those sort of things to shift as we need to. Does that make sense? Like
Okay.
each year over Christmas holidays and between the new year, we try and come up with a word of the year, kind of a verse of the year.
Yeah.
And we have this sheet that shows our values. Here's our word of the year and here's our verse of the year. And here's kind of that's the piece of paper that's kind of up around the house. And it just keeps it in front of us. Right. And we both kind of pray over that and we talk over that. And I don't know how long it took us to finalize our word of the year this year, but it wasn't January 1st. It took us time, we kind of figured it out, but we like doing that. And it gives you something that gives you both a common focal point, because we get up, and unfortunately just the nature of our current life is she's able to stay home, thankfully, and take care of the kids. We're blessed to be able to do that. And I go off to work. So we kind of get up and we go two separate directions, but I don't want that I want our family to be one unit moving in one direction. Right.
Yeah, I love the unity there because, at least in my life, I really feel that, when my wife and I are divided, uh, it's like running at half speed. But when we're united, we're on the same page. I feel like we can really accomplish anything. We can we can overcome any kind of obstacle if we're in the same place. And
100%.
and knowing that, then knowing whatever my wife may come up against or I may come up against, having a disagreement with somebody, or I don't know, you get a bill you weren't expecting, or the car breaks down, or the kid, whatever, right? Any of those things, we can overcome those things because we know that, um, you know, this person that we have, committed to, have this covenant with, that they have our back and we have theirs, and that's such a powerful concept. And I feel like it's a fairly popular thing even still to have, kind of separate but equal lives, whether
Mhm.
it's separate bank accounts, whether it's, different jobs running here, there. But that unity, at least for me, and Justin, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, but at least for me, I have found that when we are of one mind and we agree and, we have those common values like you talk about, Jason, that we can really accomplish anything, overcome any obstacle.
Yeah, and I don't want to paint the picture that we have this all figured out. Like I enjoy talking with you guys and I enjoy talking with people, but my natural tendency is I'm an introvert and I don't communicate super well.
Mm.
And my
You're
wife
doing
would,
great.
yeah, my wife would back me up on that. But she's amazing. She's so much smarter than I am. And it's amazing when I share her, I'm thinking about talking about this or, recording on this on YouTube. She's always like, well, you should make sure, think about this. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that concept. That's a
Yes.
great idea. She's
Yes.
always like way more dialed into what people need than I am. And but this does help at least to create a foundational piece to, yes, give us that unity, because where my communication breaks down, at least we can have that sort of foundational piece to move
She kind of
forward. And
helps
so,
pick you up.
oh yeah, thank goodness,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure
No,
you guys are the same way.
yeah, your wife sounds like mine. So I used to be a student pastor for 8 months to a year, depending on over the course of a couple different churches. So
Awesome.
I was writing my own sermons. I was speaking and writing I wrote my own messages. And so I'd always have her proofread them. And so many times, hey, do you really think this is a relevant illustration? Do you really think kids these days care about whatever nerdy thing I had, like I was someone
Found.
who wanted to throw in the heptadic structure, which is the how often 7 and 3 occurs in a passage and what it might mean. And, like I'm such a nerd when it comes to that stuff, because I'd sit there and see it and like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like the thumbprint of God, And
Yeah,
she's like, yeah, but do middle schoolers really care about that? And it's like, okay, that's fair. That's
fair
fair.
enough.
So
That's
yeah,
funny.
I
That's awesome.
totally hear you. Like even sometimes with this podcast stuff, well, shoot, a lot of the changes with this podcast have come from both my wife and Chad's wife, both kind of giving their
Yeah.
input, and us with not much of a filter, but a little bit of a filter, kind of listening to the feedback. They're like, yeah, let's tweak this, because we want it to grow and be healthy, and
Absolutely, right?
they want what's best for us, which is why they give us that feedback, even when sometimes it feels like a sharp jab in the ribs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all about the delivery there, right? All about the delivery.
well, it might not be the delivery, it might be my emotions and my pride. Let's be real there.
Totally. I want to put it on the delivery, but it's probably my
It's
pride.
probably my pride. It's my
criticism.
hubris. There's your word of the day, hubris.
Hubris.
You 8th graders listening out there, yeah.
Oh, and Justin,
Yes.
since I know we have some of your former students listening,
Every now and then, I think they
I
stop,
have
but
faith that they know where Vancouver is.
I have faith as well. You guys are like, where's Vancouver? I'm like, I really hope.
So Jason, you started talking about the book, and you mentioned a little bit about the sowing principle, and so I did want to talk about that a little bit. So I know we kind of jumped in a little bit into what the sowing principle is, but I'm curious how this came about, because I know you said you've wanted to write a book for a long time. But why something on the concept of sowing and reaping? Why the sowing principle? Like, how did some of that come about?
I think there's kind of two things that really brought it together. So the first thing is back a number of years ago, I was coming out of university. I was working in the restaurant industry. Great people, great friends, but not necessarily maybe headed in the right direction that I wanted to go.
Okay.
And I'm big on goals and have been raised in a household of, having goals and sort of direction. And so I was married, I was single, would like to have been dating and kind of getting to that point in life. And so I wrote down a list of things that I was looking for in a future wife, just to kind of hone in and, somebody that was, had God in the center of her life, was a person of integrity, wanted to have kids, these types of things. And it was really interesting. I still have the list on my phone.
Wow.
Which my wife bugs me about. It's pretty funny. Well, it's a note, right? It doesn't go anywhere. And
That's
so,
cool.
so it's still in there. I still have it. And it's fun. But I wrote down that list, and then something incredible happened. God really spoke to me, and he said, that's a great list, but the woman that you've written on down that list isn't going to date the man that you are today.
Oh, wow. Ooh.
Mm.
Yeah, right.
Have you heard of the pastor Andy Stanley?
Yeah.
Okay, so he says something whenever he goes through his once a year dating series, whatever it's called. He always has that line of you want to be the person you're looking for is looking for.
Pretty
And
much.
that's what that reminds me of.
There's that. Yeah. It's like, I've not heard him say that, but that's exactly what happened. And so that was a wake up call, right? It was like not that I don't want to project it that I was living this horrible life, but I wasn't living the life of what I would call like integrity, or, I wasn't who I was on Sunday morning, wasn't who I was on Thursday. Right.
Sure.
And so that was a big wake up call. So I needed to make some changes. I made some mechanical changes at the beginning by like recognizing, okay, so I think that the type of man that is going to marry a woman like this would probably be somebody that reads his Bible every day. Was like a very mechanical step that I took forward. So I started to do that. The amazing thing that happened when I started to get into my Bible every day is that I all of a sudden, and I mean, I've been a Christian most of my life, but like raised in a Christian home, so from a young age. But I all of a sudden developed and had this incredible relationship with Jesus Christ that I'd never had before.
Yes. And
that was, a byproduct out of something that was a mechanical thing that all of a sudden developed into this sort of this passion that there's this relationship where I'm having a conversation. And I recognized, oh my gosh, God actually wants to speak to me, and he really speaks to me through his word. And if I just give him the time and actually spend time in relationship with him every day, he wants to speak into my life. And so that's been huge. So that's the sort of the first part of the story of kind of brings me to that point. The second part of it is, I read a lot, I enjoy reading, I enjoy personal development, but I started to recognize these trends of like seeing, well, okay, you can learn all these sort of tools and skills and abilities in these personal development books and personal growth books, but I didn't always see the connection between learning how to take those skills and apply them to my spiritual growth as well. So my growth in my relationship with Christ. And that was sort of the sowing principle, was this idea of sort of bringing these two worlds together. Like, I know that we can develop habits. I know that we can sow seeds to actually, further our king or what we think in our life, but how about taking some of those concepts and applying them and actually sowing them to what God wants to do through us for his kingdom. So sowing seeds that maybe we don't even see the harvest of in our lifetime, but maybe they will be reaped for our children or, for God's kingdom in the future. But so it was kind of these bringing these things together and trying to marry them and just encourage people that you can do little tiny things daily that are going to change the trajectory of your life. I think so many people, we sit there and go, I want my life to change. And we're looking for these big mountaintop moments,
Right.
we're looking for God to bring down the fire, right? And like, change me. And I'm like, well, that hasn't been my personal experience. Like my personal experience has been, my life changed radically by making a very mechanical decision to read my Bible daily. There was no fire and lightning in that moment that said, there was fire and lightning in the moment of, this woman's never going to date you for sure. But there was no fire and lightning in the moment of picking up my Bible the first day and starting to read it, and reading a chapter out of Proverbs, which is kind of what my dad encouraged me to do. And that's where I started, right? The first of the month, I read Proverbs 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so on. And that's how I started, right? And then, but that continued, fed into and became a passion. And I look now and I'm going, not got it all figured out, still so far to go, continual work in progress, but my life today is drastically different than it was 10 years ago.
That's cool.
Little tiny
Wow.
steps. So
I love that you said bringing those two ideas together, because it gave me a pun. You could say you're sewing them together.
there you go. So good.
Sorry, I said, I was like, oh, there's a pun here, there's a pun here, there's a pun here.
Wait for it. Yes, I was sewing these two things together. And that's what I love talking about that stuff. That's what I really like talking about on the YouTube channel. I love taking concepts and ideas that are out of personal growth, personal development, and how can you apply them in both, not just in your life, but also in your growth as a husband, as a father, as in your relationship with Christ. Those things. I think that sometimes we don't want to cross those lines. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but every once in a while, like, nope, my spiritual life's over here and my personal growth is over here. And I'm going, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm one person. It's one of my core values. One of our core values as a family. So I want to be authentic. I want to be the same person that I am at work, that I am at home, and that I am when I write, that I am when I'm talking to you guys. It's not always easy, but I want to be the same. I want to be the same man in all those situations.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's super cool. I love the authenticity behind that. I know for me, I didn't write a book, but it was in college when I finally.
I was gonna say you should.
I don't even know what I would write it on. I did have a blog for a little while. So I mean, if I were to ever print off all those, I'd have a little, like, I don't know, 30 pages maybe of random brain dumps over the course of 3.5 years, writing sporadically too. It wasn't even like it was every week. But I picked up my Bible in college after having grown up like you, Christian mind, Christian household, Christian values, very conservative, fundamental Christian values too. So we're very heavy on all the things, but because I was never doing it for the sole purpose of me doing it to get to know God or know my Bible or even connect with the spiritual side of my being, growing up, it always been to please, make sure I don't, go to hell, because that's what they say in church,
Totally.
that kind of deal, or to try to make my dad proud or whatever, all these things. Right. So as in college, I finally did that, which reminded me of your story, or your story reminded me of that, of my own, where it was like reading it for myself. It was like this ding. And it slowly began, over time to change and shape. And then, I got to a point where I hopefully I am authentically, dirty parts and all, the same person on here. Well, I can beat myself out on here, but
Totally.
the same person on here as well as at church on Sunday or with my family, which that's been cool to watch that authenticity and still be a useful tool in God's kingdom, which has been a fun journey. So man, thank you for sharing that story of your own, your faith story, your testimony. That's super cool, man. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. It's cool that you have a similar story. That's awesome. Yeah. It's encouraging.
Yeah, you're not alone by any means. And for listeners out there who have a similar, like, I grew up in church and feel lost, like, I think some of that is that 21st century modern Christian, per se, modern contemporary Christian, especially the ones who grew up. I know there's studies on studies out there about, especially guys like you, and Chad, I don't know, did you grow up in a similar way? Did you grow up, had you always been raised in a Christian household?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
from day
so
one.
all three of us. There's actual studies on like even our psychology of having grown up in those kind of stricter homes, and then as we kind of begin to become independent, like how we then navigate that. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating stuff. And we can definitely talk more later, and we can bring it back on and jump all into faith. But I did want to ask, so I was hearing you mentioned your values earlier in the show, and then you mentioned them again when you were talking about finding your wife. So I have, and this is the dad reports. So tell us, like, are these values you're coming up with, are they from your dad? Is this from like your upbringing? This sense of I must set goals, I must set values, because everything I'm hearing from you, which not it's a total compliment because I am not this disciplined, is so disciplined. It's so structured. I mean, you sound like Craig
Yeah.
Groeschel when he's like, I wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. or Levi Lusko. Those guys get up at 5 a.m. and they have a routine.
Yeah.
It's 5 a.m. wake up. It's my coffee and my Bible for an hour or 30 minutes, whatever that is. Then it's gym. Then it's this. That way they've got everything they need to do on a creative space and on a spiritual space done by 8 a.m. Then it's wife and kids when they're getting up. And then it's off to work and they handle all their, but before they even get to work and handle their meetings and stuff. And sorry, I know this because I read a lot of Levi and
Sure.
Watch it. And I've listened in on Craig Groeschel's leadership podcast as well a little bit.
Yeah, he's got a great podcast.
Craig he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Especially for you, someone like you who likes the habit stacking. You probably got some of that from Craig because he's a wizard when it comes to that stuff. So that's what I hear from you is all that kind of like totally complimenting you, like that structure, that system. I am not that way. Like I struggle, like 6 a.m. hits and my brain is like, I try. I've wanted to be a 5 a.m. guy so badly, and it's so hard to get out of bed.
I think, yeah. I think so. The question in there, like, where did that come from? Definitely my parents, for sure. My parents have been incredible. I was raised in this home where my parents are very goal oriented and showed us the importance. Like they modeled the sowing principle for me. That it's the things that you're doing on a daily basis when nobody's watching, right? When you're seeing no results, right? When are you willing to be consistent enough? Are you willing to stay with it long enough? If you believe that that's the direction that God's calling you in, if you believe that that's something that's important and that you're supposed to be doing. I think sometimes we want to be applauded. We want to be recognized. If nobody sees what I'm doing, why would I do it? These types of things. The other thing I want to say to your comment is I have learned to give myself a lot of grace. So, there are seasons where like I just hit the snooze button, man. Like I'm just so tired because
8-week-old at home.
Yeah, exactly. Because we got an 8-week-old who my wife is doing amazing with. But then, for the transition there, like she's got the young one and I got the other two. And there was like 2 or 3 months where they just got up. Like each of them would take turns getting up in the middle of the night so that we would never skip a night, because God forbid I sleep all the way through, right? They just took turns. Couldn't decide if they just like were in the bedroom, they share a room, and whether they would just be like, hey, it's your turn, go get dad. I just don't know if that happened or not. I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't, but maybe they did. That's how great it was. But I give myself a lot of grace because I get an opportunity to get it right again tomorrow. So if I don't get up till whatever time and I'm rushing out the door, it's fine. I try not to beat myself up anymore when I would kind of miss things or not. So you say you want to develop, you got to kind of, because it's part of my identity. Have you guys talked at all about that? But because it's type of the person that I want to be and want to become, that's why I continue to push myself to get up at that time and get there. The mechanical part of it, like if you just say, I just want to be a 5 a.m. person because I want to be a 5 a.m. person, you can't sustain that. Like you might be able to do it for a week, but there's nothing that's going to keep you going when it gets tough, right?
Okay.
When you've gotten up and you've been up for 2 hours in the middle of the night and you're like, yeah, I'm a 5 a.m. person. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Not anymore. You're not. But when it becomes a part of kind of core of who you are, and yeah, a lot of grace. And I mean, there's so many areas in my life. I look at all the different areas of my life. I'm like, I got a lot of work to do. Like, I'm not as physically active as I would like to be right now. Like, we haven't been able to go to the gym. Not that I'm using that as an excuse. Gym's been closed up here. That's why I haven't been. It's not a very good excuse, right? But need to be, all these things, right? There's always stuff going on. So
Yeah, no, I like that you mentioned grace, because I think that's the one danger to being overly disciplined is you almost
yeah,
become legalistic on yourself.
yeah,
And I know I experienced that a lot with my background growing up, was I was too harsh on myself. So I'm a very perfectionist by nature, and
sure.
I've had to grow in providing myself grace, which is still not easy a lot of times.
It's not.
So,
But if
but
you're
no,
beating yourself up and then you don't start,
mm-hmm.
I did a talk about getting into your Bible, like how do you get into daily Bible reading? And I mean, I like those kind of plans and ideas of like read the Bible in a year. But I concern myself when people do that because it starts in January and they're like, I'm going to read the Bible this year. And then you get like 14 days into January and you've read one day and you're like, I guess I'm just not going to read my Bible this year. And then you don't read your Bible at all, right?
Right.
Like you beat yourself up. So I get concerned. I have concerns when people try and do that. It's like the New Year's resolution style. Like, well, this year I'm going to do things different.
It's too big of a goal.
You're just setting yourself up and then you beat yourself up and then you don't do anything at all. It's like,
well, that's something those guys have even talked about, like the Levi Craigs. Those guys have talked about you pick Levi has an illustration. He ironically does it on stage, and he's like, just start with one push-up a day. And he's like,
totally.
What you'll notice is you'll be on the floor and you're like, I could do another one. Before you know it, you're doing 20 a day because you built up from one.
Totally.
And then one of our local pastors here was doing a similar series of talks. One of the things he said is, if you set a habit, one of the rules you give yourself is, because you're going to miss it at some point, don't miss twice. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on, because I'm thinking about, I can hear that phrase in my head as you're mentioning, this habit building and identity being a part of it, and which obviously helps provide drive. Because I say I want to be a 5 a.m. guy, but it's just because I think those guys are cool that can do that. At some point I'll get there, and it's slowly building for an identity. Because right now, like, I do want to grow more in my faith, and that needs to start coming up. And I'm starting to disciple one of my former middle school ministry kids.
Cool.
He's 18 now, and he and I are meeting for coffee twice a week at 6 a.m. But that means I also got to be getting up at 5. So I'm getting prepared for that. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So it's coming in. It's becoming a part of who you are. It's coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my mother's always not beat that. She's always put that over. Never miss twice. She says that all the time.
Don't say beat.
She's going to hear. She's like, I never beat you. No,
with the broom behind you. Don't miss twice.
Yeah, exactly. Never miss twice. That's a big one. She's a big fan of that. Like, have grace, but never miss twice. If it's something that's important to you, if it's a part of, your identity, and it's a part of something you believe you need to do, don't miss twice is huge, right?
Yeah.
So you pick yourself up and keep going, because we all sinners saved by grace make a lot of mistakes.
Amen.
That's right. Can
you talk a little bit about your faith? I know we're running a little bit close on time. We need to get you back home to your 8-week-old, but I've loved hearing you talk about your faith. And I know we talked about kind of like your faith, like come later years, trying to find a wife. But just, can you give us like a survey, 20,000 foot view of how your faith story is kind of developed?
Yeah, I mean, so
if it needs to wait, it can wait. We can definitely.
No, I'm trying to think of the best way to talk about it. I think, yeah. So like when my younger years, I mean, I remember being there, and sort of the same thing like you're talking about. It's like, well, am I going to hell or am I going to heaven? And like being like terrified of one or the other, or Justin, you were kind of saying that, but and so going through that through sort of high school and then sort of working and always being at church, but not as a part of youth group. And it was fun. It was relational, but it was very mechanical for most of my youth. And then kind of walking through that, the big shift was that sort of diving in and becoming in relationship. And now I look at my faith in just that way of like a relationship, but something that I'm just constantly learning about and wanting to ask God, what do you want to do in and through me? Like, I believe that's a big part of my purpose. A big part of the sowing principle that kind of came out that has really resonated with people is that I've recognized that I'm sowing seeds that I may never see the harvest for. And I think that that's super countercultural right now. We're like, well, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, right? You want to get, but that's because you're going to invest in this stock because you want to make X number of dollars.
You want immediate
gratification.
Yeah.
but I look at, there's a great church that my wife was actually a children's ministry pastor at, where when we met, she was a children's ministry pastor there. Amazing church, been around for a really long time. It was started, I'm going to get the years wrong, I don't remember, it doesn't matter, but before I was born, well before I was born, but it was started by two ladies that started a Sunday school.
Hmm.
And now it's a church of, a couple thousand people on a Sunday and multiple services. And, you look at the church and it's a pillar in the community. Okay. Those women planted those seeds many, many years ago to start a Sunday school. I guarantee they had no idea what God was going to do through that church.
Absolutely.
Right. And we look at that and we go, that's amazing. That's incredible. And I look at that and I go, am I doing anything even remotely close to planting seeds that God could maybe do something with in the future? And so I'm constantly trying to let him speak into my life. That's what, I do these videos and I write the books and I want to give talks because I learn so much when I have to force myself to prepare to think about a topic deeply enough to be able to talk and share about it. I learn a lot. Right.
Yeah.
So that to me is a big part of sort of my faith now, and trying to, how do you connect with people, encourage people? How do I encourage people to live out their life? Because if we're living out our lives on purpose, people are going to notice that. And it's never been a big part of my faith where I've just walked up to somebody and said, hey, let's talk about Jesus. That hasn't been a part of my story, hasn't really been a part of my life. For a lot of people, it can be and would be, but it hasn't been mine. But I do know that people know that I'm a Christian. They know that I live in faith, that I walk in faith. And at least I hope and continue that they can see that working in my life. I think that's more of the, as I'm moving forward, I put a chapter in the book that's just straight up. It's like, if you don't know who Jesus is, here's the prayer. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
because I want to be able to actively engage with people. I want to give people that opportunity to know him and to know him better if they don't. So Lord opens up those doors for me now.
Oh, I love that. I think you and I would agree, or it feels like we have a similar philosophy where it's, our style of evangelization is really just it's our witness out in public, how we carry ourselves, and God will use, if we're walking according to his word, if we're walking according to his purpose, we don't have to go knock on the shoulder and pass out a track and give that really awkward, have you met Jesus kind of conversation. I'm not like, I hate like, and
That's a new voice, Justin.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's
One
good.
of the thank you. One of the churches I used to work at was real big on that. Like, you gotta go talk to them all, right? But that's just not been my, because I'm working at Kroger for a long time, and like, we talk about Jesus all the time, but it's because just something gave off this air of like, he's different, and they get, what do you do? What's happening on the weekends? And then it just opens up those doors for, well, yeah, I'm a middle school leader here. This, boom, and there's your have you met Jesus conversation without even having to again do that awkward have you met. There you go.
Totally.
There's that voice. So I love that. I love that about you, Chad. We need to get this man back to support his wife and his 3 children.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the clock. Yeah, definitely want to be honoring of your time, get you back home. So I have 2 things. First thing, so people have heard a lot about, just kind of your life, your book, your YouTube channel. If you have their interest pegged and they want to know more, they want to kind of dig into more about what you're talking about, where's the best place for them to find you online?
The best place would probably be my website. So that's just my name. So it's Jason Alcott. That's Jason, Jason, and then my last name is Alcott, ALCOTT.com.
We'll make sure to put it in the footnotes of this
Cool.
episode.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you can type that into YouTube as well, and it comes up pretty quick. I'm posting weekly or multiple times a week in there right now, and I'm on other things too, but those are kind of the key things. The nice thing about the website is, if you're still getting emails, which most people still do, I do send out the YouTube video in a weekly email and then updates. As I'm also building resources. Like I'm working with a good friend of mine to build a way to kind of take a look at your values and see if you can hone in on those, like a skills and exercise to walk through and kind of clarify your values.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to I'm hoping to have that done in the next month or so. And I want to be able to give that away and kind of to those that are kind of engaging with the content. So if you're there and you're kind of getting my emails, you're going to get that. So definitely I would recommend people head over there and get that.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you've got some really good stuff in the works. And lastly, before we go, I did want to give you a chance to share, because you said that you brought a dad joke
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Hey,
Chad, thank you for
I've been
remembering.
listening to the dad report, trying to prepare, and I'm like, well, I better bring a dad joke, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
miss a few weeks
exactly.
every now and then, so I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought one. Never miss
Okay. All right.
twice.
Okay. So yeah, never miss twice. There you
Never
go.
miss
I like
twice.
it. Okay. Where do you learn to make a banana split?
Oh, there's gonna be an education pun in here somewhere.
You
All
got
right,
me.
Absolutely.
lay it on me.
Keeping it church like at Sunday school.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's
haven't
right.
heard that one. That's great.
that's a
My
great.
fear was like that you guys would have heard it. You'd be like,
No,
oh,
that
we
one I
already did
haven't
that.
heard.
Come
Oh man, that's
Sunday
so
school.
good.
It's good stuff,
Sunday
right?
school.
Yeah. Sunday school.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Justin, I'm surprised that one got by you. You're
I'm
you're
surprised.
you're
Come
kind
on.
Well,
of
I
the
knew it was
master of puns.
education based, but I was like, man, where did Sundays? Sundays is where it got me. Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
That's
That's
for you guys.
awesome. Thank you, Jason.
Oh, so good.
That's great.
So
Guys, thanks
good.
for having me. If I can affirm you guys, this is an incredible thing you guys are doing. You guys are sewing into dads, and I think that that's so necessary and needed. And just we need to be uplifted and encouraged as men and husbands and fathers to continue to learn and to grow. And you guys doing this is an incredible thing. So keep it up, keep going. It's awesome.
Thank you, Jason. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, man. Thank you for just engaging with us and coming on the show. And this has been great.
I look forward to having you back on if you're cool with
Yeah,
it.
I'd love to. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
who knows?
Sweet.
Maybe we
absolutely.
could do some other kind of
So whenever you need
collaboration at
another
some
break
point,
from
you know?
the kids, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Honey, I gotta go to Florida actually to record. They said the
Yes.
last time that the audio didn't come through clearly, so best if we do in person. I'll be back soon.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
Don't do that.
No, that won't go over well. She's gonna listen to this too. Oh,
Oh,
dear.
she will.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
Well,
Awesome.
yeah,
I would love to. I would be honored to. That'd be great.
We'd love to have. Yeah, I'd be honored to have you back on.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, so this has been great. We're following you. I know a lot of our listeners will probably get out there, get the book, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you again. Thanks for your time. I know, especially with the little ones that you've got right now, your time is very valuable. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us. And Justin, you want to send us out?
All right. We're out of here.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can support us by sharing the show with your friends and family. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
Want more of the Dad Report? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and even join the community over on Discord. Don't forget to send us your dad jokes for a chance to be featured on the show.
Remember the words of Billy Graham about fatherhood. A good father is one of the most unsung, unpraised, unnoticed, and yet one of the most valuable assets in our society.
So if you are a dad, we're cheering you on. If you have a dad, be kind to him. And if you know a dad, tell him about our podcast.